Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. It's indeed, as I said, it's a great privilege and honor to be here. This book is the ultimate goal and very wonderfully points out that the real power comes not from the barrel of a gun, but from those who control the narratives. So about the power of the narratives, because we know that the wars in time to come are unlikely to be frontal attacks. They're very unlikely to be, or even for that matter, flanking attacks as well, will be very, very rare. Most of the wars will probably be the economic wars or maybe the cyber wars, and probably engaged by the non-state actors also, who are very difficult to trace or identify, where the narrative is going to be more important than the barrel of a gun. What is also important is that you have to have your narrative very quickly. Firstly, sir, I would like to know from you, what is the possibility of a frontal war or a frontal attack?
Okay. Well, first of all, let me thank the OCLF for inviting me again to this session for this year's festival. The wars are going to be different, as you yourself mentioned. In fact, you might even say that the wars are already on. It's not blood and guts so much as it is control. It is also control of the mind, control of, as I say in my book, control of the narrative. It's control of resources, distribution of resources, and economic control where the corporates are sometimes stronger than the state. And the narrative gets built in a matter of minutes. Narratives, that means the tactical narratives, not the strategic long-term narrative, but the tactical narrative gets built over WhatsApp or Facebook, or we've all seen how it happens, how fake stories become true and the truth is blurred. So we are now in a very different state, and I don't know exactly how we are going to deal with the aspects of artificial intelligence when it becomes full grown. They're already talking about 6G. So are we losing control? Are we letting artificial intelligence take over? And then if that intelligence goes rogue, what happens to all of us? We are now playing. Science is very good. Science is now playing with us too. So wars of the future, they could. I don't mean to rule out skirmishes on the borderline like we've had with Pakistan. We keep having it. We had with China. We could have it again. Those kinds of things will continue. But if you think of a war in the terms of the Great War of the 20th century, or Vietnam, or I don't think even Afghanistan is going to be repeated in that fashion. We're going to have wars fought with either with UAVs, drones, and tactics where you target your opponent from the comfort of your air-conditioned console. And death there has no meaning because you don't hear the shrieks, you don't hear the cries, you don't hear the sound of the explosion. All you see is a blip. And you don't know how many you've killed and what you've killed and who you've killed. So it's going to be that kind of a war. Who wants to fight that kind of a war is another question. Who wants to fight a war for me, for my sake? Any country? Can you name one? Who will fight a war for Taiwan? Will the Americans do it? So these are things that are up in the air. They're question marks. Everybody wants to have a narrative on everything, but how it's going to play out, We don't know. So in that sense, wars are continuing. The Cold War has become Cold War II. You got, instead of Soviet Union, you got China. It's the same old game again. You're either with me or against me. And you can't forget that you have close in the background is the Russian, is Russia. It's a country that fought and defeated the Nazis the second time and Napoleon the first time. More Russians died in the Second World War than any other country, I think, if I'm not mistaken, at least among the Allies. So it has suffered a lot. It has given a lot. It's not going to go away just like that, just because they won in the Afghan jihad or subsequent to that, the collapse of the Soviet Union. But now it's again a different country. So there is that country. Now, where are we going to fit in all this? And who is going to oppose us? That's the larger question. We can talk about it as we go along. So that's what I think. Wars are already on. We don't see them all the time. Who has heard of Ethiopia, Yemen? There's still wars going on. People are dying. Somalia, even Balochistan, people are dying. So it's a world full of contradictions and problems. A big surge, big churn is taking place, where the old seems to be receding and the new hasn't come in yet. So some of us dread that, some of us are happy with that. That's a way of life. So I'll stop there, otherwise I keep rambling.
No, that's absolutely a perfect point, that the wars have not stopped. They are still there. Cold War is maybe not directly now between Russia and the United States, but maybe between China and United States.
Yeah.
So probably the boundaries have changed a little, but the wars are still there, very much there. Now, in these cases, it is again the narrative which becomes much, much very important.
Mm-hmm.
The important thing is that unlike the scientific facts or the mathematical equations, which are sacrosanct until proven otherwise, the political facts, historical facts, and ideas are malleable and can be changed as per the geopolitical convenience.
Yeah.
This is what is being done also. So scientific proof is rarely required.
Mm-hmm.
But archaeological facts for history are an exception here. So this conviction is determined by the narratives created. Now, who are the major stakeholders in creating these kind of narratives?
Who's got the most at stake is going to create the narrative the most. Now, if the United States says it is a global power, it has global responsibilities, it has the ability, the means, and the right to put things right wherever they are wrong. Therefore, it is the one that will create the narrative. It is also able to create narrative. One is the thought that you will create narrative. The other is to transmit that narrative. Who controls the waves? Who controls the communications? Who controls the media? I mean, which country or which part of the globe controls all this? Now, these are the mediums on which you will spread your narrative. And they're controlled there. They're not controlled by us. And narratives are for a purpose. The state wants to seek control or dominate. A colonial power used to come and say, I am superior to you, therefore you are inferior. You don't have a civilization, I gave it to you. When the Aryans came, etc., etc., etc. We've heard all that. The corporate sector is all about my product is better than yours. Pharma says my product is better than yours. Creates a narrative that only Pfizer can is the solution to COVID. Okay, or others are rubbish. Covaxin is rubbish. Covishield is rubbish. We are the ones. So they have the means to do it. We don't have the means to say you're wrong. We can shout here, but who cares? So it's about profits for them. Therefore, they want to control it. There are several high-tech companies. They have their narratives, their own narrative. They're selling products to us. They're giving us product free. Now, why on earth would anyone give a product like that free? Why would Google give me the facility of finding my route from here to wherever I want to go free? But it's not free. It comes at a price. They've got your data. So, and that is the one that is sold. That is where the profits are and the advertisements that they get. So this is, everything is about control and money.
Yeah,
if you have both, you have everything. And if you are not able to sell your narrative, it's like Hindi mein kehte hain na, jungle mein mor nacha kisne dega. You can have the fanciest gun, but nobody knows about it. So nobody cares. But if you have a stupid gun, but you say it's the best, then people will believe it maybe. And buy it. And fight with it. And then they will buy some more with it. So it goes, this is how the cycle works. Now, look, for instance, this Black Friday that people keep talking about these days. Black Friday sales, a big thing, Black Friday sale. First of all, let's forget the part that this is all a gimmick. It's really not much of a sale. But look at, people have forgotten what the word Black Friday means. In the old American terminology, it was the day after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Thursday. Next day, they would go to a sale of Negroes. Negroes. Now they don't call them Negroes, but those days they were niggers. That is what it was. Slaves, niggers, taunting them. They were on display. That was Black Friday. And we stupidly are talking about a Black Friday sale in India. That's how commercialized, that's how globalization is. हम भी कर रहे हैं Black Friday. See? So these are narratives. You created something out of nothing, and you made a sale out of it. You made money out of it. And then we move on. Individual narratives तो अलग बात है, but the state narrative, the corporate narrative, is the most important thing today. Those who have the means will do it. Those who don't have the means will have to create the means, like you or I. We are using Western systems of communication. We are relying on that. We got nothing of our own. कल को अगर सब कुछ मान लीजिए विड्रॉ हो जाता है, we'll have nothing, hypothetically speaking. If there is no internet for Indians, what will you do?
Yes.
Systems will collapse. So that's another kind of war. Hypothetically, cut off links, put them in a cocoon. And if cyber war breaks your communication network, your trains can't run, your aircraft can't fly. So that's how it's going to be.
So there are multiple stakeholders in developing a particular narrative, not just the individual, but the state.
Political parties have their own narratives about everything. You can see it these days. Farmers have their narrative. The Sarkar has its own narrative.
Yes.
We're carrying on. And what's fake and what's true, we don't know.
So that's absolutely what I was coming to. A nation cannot build a credible narrative about its values, or if it does not practice freedom at home, or if it relies solely on the government machinery to spread a message. Now, such nations do not receive affection, and even if they might get some respect or more likely fear. So this building narratives and sustaining them is a part of the effort to control storyline, which in turn will help control the world, the ultimate goal of ambitions and being powerful. Now, freedom of speech is great, wonderful that you have a freedom of speech in your country, but it has to be mature enough. I'm saying that the freedom of speech has to be mature enough means it has to be, it should not get abused.
Yeah.
So, can we do something in order to get narrative right while maintaining the freedom of speech?
But you're absolutely right, Dr. Paturkar, that if you don't have freedoms, all you'll be left with will be government propaganda.
Yeah.
Now that's horrible, but that's not a narrative because then you're just being fed from Dr. Gobel's uh, files. So freedoms are essential, and freedom of speech and freedom of thought. But you're also very right. Freedoms, my freedom to speak is also curtailed by your freedom of speech. I mean, I can't say I have the freedom of speech to say anything, but you don't. I have my rights, which are also curtailed by your rights. I have a right to drive the car, but only on the left side. So we haven't yet, I don't think we have reached the state of that kind of maturity that we accept what responsible freedom of speech is, which is different from being politically correct. Politically correct is an expression to say that I don't want to say anything. That's not what it is. I must call a spade, but I must not offend. Abuse is not freedom of speech. Like violence is not pure violence is not the freedom to defend. So we have, I think, with education it comes. First, you go into a trough, and suddenly you find everybody thinks he's free to say what he likes, and then you have facilities like Facebook and this and that and the other. Everybody wants to have his point of view, right or wrong, abusive or non-abusive, whatever. That there can't be any law. I don't think you can do any law or legality about it, but you have to. It is something that the society itself must learn to disregard or object or shun. If somebody is abusive to me on the Twitter, I just want to block him. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. I don't want to respond. I don't want to talk to him. If he wants to argue with me, fine. You want to have a difference of opinion. We are all entitled to our opinions. Say it the way you should be saying it, and I'll accept it. Maybe I'll agree with you. But if you're going to call me names, I'm not going to talk to you. And we must learn to do that. Not engage them. Not engage an abusive person. The bad man wins because the good keep quiet. That we shouldn't let that happen. And if 10 gundas can get away with it if 100 don't say anything. Today you see on the roadside people send you videographs of an act of violence on the street, but nobody interferes. They just take the shot and move off. So the guy who's doing that, he should be hauled up. What did you do with this? I mean, you're actually spreading hate and violence by doing this. So this kind of freedom has to be institutionally controlled by the platforms. They are publishers. They have to be able to control this kind of rubbish that goes on. Because otherwise it just go haywire and then we'll have no control. We'll not know what is right, what is wrong in life, what is fake and what is real. So freedom is necessary. I totally agree with you. I totally agree that freedom has to be responsibly exercised. And I also that any violation of this right of an individual or overuse of the right should be instantly reprimanded or punished. I saw a video in a train somewhere in the United States. A clip. Two or three black girls are beating two or three Asians. Everybody in the vestibule is minding his own business. Is that civilization? Is that political correctness? Is it freedom? What is it? Oh, these are worrying signs in a society that we all admire. That they won't let this kind of thing happen in their own country. So this hopefully maybe with time we will get to know, like Garebi Hatao was a slogan which everybody followed happily. So what happened? Nothing. The slogan also died. Garebi never got out. So those are things that we keep doing ourselves. The Americans went to Iraq based on a narrative which is not true at all, and it got knocked out in the first 10 days of the war. But that didn't mean they'll vacate, they stayed on. So a narrative must have a basis of truth, and we must have the freedom to say what we have to say, but not the freedom to abuse.
Exactly. I mean, narratives are about perception of events and goals.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not about the fake news. What we have seen, that the amount of trouble that the fake news has been creating. The most important requisite for a narrative to be successfully sold is the receptive audience. You have to have the receptive audience for your narrative.
Absolutely right.
And yeah, and the external assistance alone cannot create insurgency. That's another problem. Simply by supplying funds and arms, there must be some kind of a local grievance, national, religious, or ethnic, real or imaginary. I mean, we are talking about the fake news also created over time through propaganda, and which is then exploited by the external entity to create an insurgent movement. And we have seen there are no frontal wars, but then funding of insurgencies, etc. That's happening, and it's much more like advertising. Create a brand, a dream that and a need for the product. What advertising does. So how can we develop brand India for an attribute that it stands for, that she stands for?
Important question, long answer. You know, for years, I went to school and I was never taught history. And the history I came to know later was warped. And I didn't know. That was the only history that was taught. When I went to college, I had two papers in history. It was British history and medieval Indian history, I think. And it was about kings killing each other and so on. Nothing substantive about the people of that time or nothing. And we never got to know. We were told that Mohenjo-daro was an Aryan creation. They are the guys who came, etc., etc. And Alexander had won the war. Now these are stories, and they never talked. The British never ever talked about South India.
Yeah.
You don't find Cholas or Chalukyas, Pandyans
Correct.
mentioned in their books.
Yes.
The only chap they mentioned was Tipu Sultan.
Correct.
So your history has to be corrected first.
Mhm.
When you're able to correct your history and put everything as it should be, when I can tell everybody that Alexander did not win the war, battle on the banks of the Jhelum. At best, it was a draw, and Mr. Alexander had to leave because his people were not going to fight anymore. And then he actually got hit, in the shoulder while going back, and he died subsequently. He was not great, he was a good conqueror, but he didn't make any empire. But the British cannot accept that. Your ruler cannot be seen to have been defeated, or his kind, the Western European kind, the mother of their civilization, defeated by this little prince in a principality of India, be defeated by him. So he had to be shown as defeated. So what do we get? We get a movie and a yarn. I remember seeing that movie, Rustam. No, Sikandar-e-Azam by Surab. I forget his name. Prithviraj Kapoor and Saurabh Modi. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
young Yash wouldn't know all this. So there, the scene is that Alexander's wife comes across the river and gives Porus a Rakhi and says, "You got to now defend me and my husband." So the next day, when they battle, Porus had a chance to kill him, but he holds back. Then the tide turns. Then Porus is produced before the king, and the king is the grandee. I give you back your freedom because of what you said just now. These are not make believe stories. These are legends that we were given. We were made to believe. We were made to believe that the Red Indian was a horrible fellow in America, but the cowboy was the brightest, wonderfulest guy on earth. So those are the stories we grew with. We have to correct that impression is still there with many of us. Perhaps more with my generation, and that's now on its way out. But we have to take pride in ourselves, to take pride in our inheritance with confidence. We are the oldest civilization. Whether it's 6,000 or 8,000, 10,000, I don't care. It is the oldest with the oldest religion today. Why shouldn't we take pride? What is it? What is it special that it makes it be like this? It has stayed here for so long. Others have come and gone. So there must be something in us that is brought it to this stage. Christianity came much later. Islam came even much later. So we were there, perhaps forever, it seems, in that context. So we have to go back to our inheritance. We have to take pride in our inheritance. We must show it. I mean, I think the best narratives that are ever told have ever been told are the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, the Gita. I mean, there is so much wisdom, so much narrative, so much story, so much naturalness in the Mahabharata. How we scheme and you know, conspire and statecraft. Everything is there. So, and those are narratives about that period. We have to. What about our temples, for instance? Those magnificent temples we've got in the south, particularly. They were built in those days with such scientific accuracy that the sun would beam through one window at one time, at another after the next equinox, and so on and so forth, every time, or every 5 minutes. There were no computers, there were no winches and cranes, there was no design, but they had the knowledge. If they had the knowledge, where did it come from? Where is it gone? We have to tell the world that we gave them more than just the decimal.
Yes.
And if we say that we have discovered these things in the past, it's there in our chronicles, in our books. We have to write about it. We have to talk about it. We have to take pride in it. Tourism, for instance. You don't have the means to communicate things like Reuters or AFP or CNN can do it, flash news the world over. You do your tourism right. You get millions of people into your country. Show them yourself. Showcase yourself. And they'll carry back stories. You know, France gets the equivalent of its own population as tourists every year. 60 million. Now, if we were to get 1 billion tourists every year, imagine the difference it would make to 1 billion people who go back with a happy impression. Statistically speaking, in 10 years, you would have covered the whole world. Right? They would have gone
Absolutely.
back with a happy impression of this country, about itself, about its past. But we don't do it. We only think that if you go there and if you go there and take some books and pamphlets, they'll be impressed. No, they're not impressed. It's your art, your culture. We have so much of it.
Absolutely.
But
There are, yeah.
But just one more thing.
Yes, sir.
But let us not forget that we cannot live in the past. So we have to make sure that we tell them that we've got these huge basket, shall I say, what should I say, of talent in the country, of young talent who can. I mean, how is Microsoft and how are Google running? Because there's so many Indians working there. So if they can do it there, why can't we make them do it here for us? Why do we send our people to IITs and don't give them an opportunity in India to excel? I mean, if there's a bright chap who can continue with his research on whatever he's doing in India at an institute of equal standing, why not? Why don't we have any university in the top 50 in the world? That's where your strengths will be. That's where your narratives will be. Put 10 universities of that quality there, it'll change your concept, your perceptions. But we don't have any. We just खोल के बैठ जाते हैं colleges without any meaning. Where is the skill? Don't develop any skill. A carpenter is somebody who learned his carpentry at home. He's never been to a school. A plumber has done the same thing. We have no mid-level skills in the country. So I'm straying. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect. Because two important points that you have raised. You did mention that it's a small question, long answer, but two very important points. One was about the movies. Now, the CIA considered films to be an ideal means of communication to send the pro-democracy messages to countries with higher levels of illiteracy. When we have the examples like films like Zero Dark 30 was good for CIA as they drew public support for its activities and for the national security state. There are attempts in India as well. But on which front do you think contribution from Indian films will help India create a positive narrative? We are running short of time. There is another one that is also about
Oh,
leveraging cultural heritage as well.
okay, okay,
About
okay.
what do we
It's not,
expect from the movies, how they can contribute to our narrative.
you know, I've been seeing some of the latest films that come out on the small budget, realistic films. They talk about semi-urban in India, small town aspirations. Those are those are endearing films that tell you who you are, and it's not all razzmatazz of Bollywood. And films like Udham Singh. Have you seen Sardar Udham? It's a wonderful movie. Why has it taken us 75 years to make it? We don't know, because nobody wanted to portray anybody else but a few other people to be the heroes. So everybody is out. Why hasn't there been a movie on Subhash Bose so far? Hasn't there been a good production of a movie about Shahid Bhagat Singh? And the only movie we produced recently was this one, Rani of Jhansi, Manikarna. So we have to produce history books. We have to produce slick documentaries
Yes.
of the National Geographic scale. If you get the model I'm looking at,
Mm-hmm.
where it is true story about a village or a tribe or a farmhouse or an activity that has gone on in India for years and years. I mean, a documentary on Dr. Kurian would be an excellent thing to do. That's India. He's given us from nothing to everything as far as milk is concerned.
Yes, yes.
Why don't we idolize our present day heroes and bygone heroes? तभी तो confidence आएगा ना हम में कि that we can do all this.
Yes.
So Zero Dark 30 was a movie which was the CIA made to prove also that torture would lead to results. You get interrogation karoge, what they call enhanced interrogation, and you'll get the truth.
Mm.
And that is all rubbish, but that's how it was done. And they made movies like Guns of Navarone, Bridge over River Kwai. There's no River Kwai anywhere.
Right.
But it's a good story. It sold. They made a lot of money. They proved their allies were such wonderful fellows. History has been written by the allies, not by the Germans. It's always written by the victors.
That's right.
So,
Sir, we are completely running out of time. One final question that I have is how exactly corporatization of war works? That's the final question that I have. How does
it's a very interesting question. War is about profits. Who sells the weapons? Who makes the weapons? If tomorrow there were peace, total peace in the world, total peace, who loses? All your companies in America, in Britain, in France, Germany, Russia, closed down. How many people will lose jobs? How many congressmen or MPs will not get their handouts? So this is, you corporatize the war. Then you've introduced private corporations running your ancillary services like infrastructure maintenance, Like you had India has the Army Supply Corps. There they gave it to Brown and Root and somebody else to give all the goodies, provide all the rations, put up all the buildings. Even security guards and the perimeter security was privatized. The Blackwater is there. DynCorp is there. DynCorp was providing security to the Afghan president, private company. So it's a wonderful situation where everybody can get some money out of it. So if you tomorrow if you say everybody all become healthy and fine and no medicines required, what happens to your pharma industry? They rely on you and I being ill. They rely on you and I being at war rather than at peace.
Yes.
That is the moral.
Yes, sir. We are completely running out of time, but we do come to a conclusion that the real power comes not from the barrel of a gun, but from those who control the narratives. And narratives are very, very important. Thank you very much, sir, for your insight on how to develop these narratives. You have done it wonderfully in the book as well. And now also some of the insights that you have given will definitely help us also and develop some narratives over a period of time. Thank you very much, sir, on personal behalf as well as on behalf of the OCLF.
Subscribe to Nation Next YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get regular updates from Nation Next. Also like Nation Next Facebook page and follow us on Instagram and Twitter.